Today, I am going to show you how to make a super simple budget that takes almost no time at all. Let's dive right in. Hey everyone, this is Lauren Mack with Hacking the Rat Race, and I would love if you would like this video and subscribe so you don't miss any great content on money, investing, and savings. Today, I'm going to show you how to make a super simple budget, automate a large portion of it, and this budget only has 5 main buckets. So let's dive right in. The best way to start a budget is to look at 3 months of your prior expenses. And that way, it's just very accurate, right? If you had 1 month that was kind of off or something was down, maybe you moved or you had high spending, it may not be accurate of how much money you're actually spending. And you'd be surprised so many times. I've done this with people and they're shocked at how much money they're spending in different categories because it just seems like a little bit here, a little bit there, but when you add it all up, it ends up being a huge number each month. So get 3 months of your bank statements, credit card, like anything that you have spent money on and also received money income, get those together and you are going to review them and put them in the different categories of your budget, which we'll get to in a second. However, if this is a huge stumbling block for you and you absolutely hate doing the budget, like maybe you'd rather eat bugs, I don't know, then you don't have to necessarily do this part. But if you're gonna basically be guesstimating what your expenses are, then I would say you need to add at least 10%, even to the ones you're sure about, because there are always things that get left off, right? So again, my recommendation is to get 3 months. And here's the thing, I've already created another video that saves hours on this process. And I will link to it in the show notes below, as well as at the end of this video. So if you want to go check that one out, it can literally save you hours on this part. But it's very important you get 3 months of your bank statements, credit cards, whatever you've been spending, and go through your expenses and find out what you're actually spending in each area. Okay, so now we're going to dive into the 5 buckets of the budget. So the first bucket is going to be your reoccurring monthly expenses category. So here are just some examples. Again, once you go through your own bank statements and credit card statements, you may have other areas. These were just some ideas in case you're trying to kind of go through them in your head, like your rent, your mortgage, electric bill, phone bill, gas bill, internet, cable, water, trash, car insurance, car inspection, car registration, fuel, car repairs, oil changes, commuting costs, if you don't have a car, life insurance, groceries, medical expenses, prescriptions, house maintenance, children expenses, gifts, loan payments, tithing, giving, clothing, gym, dry cleaning, and haircut. I want to make sure that you include items that are not necessarily reoccurring every month, such as car repairs, right? So I don't know, you're going to have to estimate that, maybe look back at your previous car repairs, but you should be saving for that every month. That way when it happens, it isn't an emergency. And it may feel like it's really like a minor emergency, right? But we know at some point we're going to have car repairs. But I know often when we're doing a budget, there ends up being more budget at the end of our money. And if that's the case, then for now, just have those items on there and have a dash next to them. And while we're working up until our final goal, those things can be used out of the true emergency fund as we're building the emergency fund. However, if you have extra money in your budget or you get to the end of your budget and there's still some wiggle room, I would definitely start budgeting for those things as soon as possible because then they're no longer emergencies. That's going to bring your stress level down 1 notch. But again, if you're doing this and you're like, oh my gosh, I just have way too much budget and not enough money and you can't cut like enough things out, then I would say for now, just keep those things on your budget listed, but just put a dash next to them or like a denotation. And if something comes up during the first level of this process, you can use your emergency fund. But the goal is going to be to work those into your budget over time. So the last thing I just want to quickly mention is if you see over here on this far column, you have clothing, gym, dry cleaning, haircut. Again, these are items that could probably be in your budget, but they could also be under spending. We'll get to that in a little bit later, but for now, just if you are buying clothes, going to the gym, dry cleaner, whatever they are, just go ahead and list them out with how much money you're spending on them. Okay, so now we're gonna go to the next bucket. So your next bucket are going to be investments. That will include your 401k, IRA, Roth IRA, real estate, stocks, bonds, anything else you have for investments. One thing I will recommend while we're here If your company has a 401k match, then you definitely need to be putting up to that match amount into your 401k, because that is 100% return on your investment. So if your company, say, matches 3%, then you should be putting 3% of your salary into your 401k, because again, that is 100% return on your investment. And as far as how much to put into each one of these buckets, I will discuss that once we get to the next section. The third bucket is going to be savings. So it's going to be your emergency fund, also known as your stress-free fund, because here's the thing. Whenever you're really strapped for cash, or you're not budgeting, you don't know where your money's going, and things happen that are like the minor emergencies that I mentioned earlier that we know are going to happen, we're just not prepared for them every month. But then there's also the huge emergencies, right? Like maybe a trip to the ER, a bad car accident, your car gets stolen, like a true emergency. Once you have your emergency fund built up and you have those reoccurring things in your budget, like car repairs, literally your stress level goes down dramatically, especially around money, because all these things that stress you out, you're now prepared for them. So your first section of savings will be your emergency fund. The second section of savings is going to be your milestone savings. This will be like down payment for a house, a wedding, your vacation, something like that. Milestone savings. Next bucket is giving. This can be tithing if you go to a church. Tithing is when you give 10% of your income to a church, or maybe you're giving to charitable organizations. I am huge on giving, and we'll get to that shortly, but just know the fourth bucket is giving. The fifth bucket is your spending. This is going to be entertainment, eating out, hobby, pretty much anything else that you spend money on that is not already included in your budget. Okay, so now we've gone over the 5 buckets. So now we're just going to quickly go over putting these things that we have found into our budget. So once you've gone through your bank statements, your credit card statements, all those different items, and you've grouped them into categories according to the 5 buckets, then you're going to add them to your budget. It can look something like this, a principle, even written, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to quickly go over with you what goes where. So the first section here is your income, like your paycheck, dividends, whatever it is. Projected costs, that'll be the amount that you're budgeting for this item. The next bucket here is your expenses, like mortgage, electricity, gas, etc. And this again will be the amount that you are budgeting for them. The next one's investments, savings, giving, spending. Then you'll have your total expenses. And then this should be 0, right? Because in the first part, level 1, if you have any money left here, it's going to go towards your emergency fund. Then once your emergency fund is full, then it's going to start going towards your loan payments. Once your loan payments are done, then it will be dispersed out according to savings, investments, and giving. Okay. And then you just go month over month. Now, if this is too much for you, if you don't have Excel, you don't like spreadsheets, that is totally fine. You could do something like this. It's just a printable. You can print it out. You can just write in the description. So your income would be paycheck, dividend, your expenses, mortgage, rent, or electricity, whatever it is. Your investments here, the budget, and then how much you actually spent. You do this each month. Savings, giving, spending, and then down here you have your totals. So the total income. So basically you would come up here, you would add up this column, it would go here. You would add up actual, it would go here, and then the difference would be here. So were you over, under, or even? And then at the end, you'll just total them up here, and that way you can see for the month if you're under or over. The next option would be to do something like this. And honestly, this is perfectly fine. Don't have any stumbling blocks like, I don't have a printer, I can't print it out, I don't know how to use Excel. It does not matter. You just need to get started. Okay, so now we've gone over the 5 main buckets. Now I want to talk to you about which accounts you should have. So you should have one checking account, like a regular checking account, and also when you're opening these accounts, or if you have these accounts, make sure that you get accounts that don't have minimums, that don't have fees, that at least give you some interest, right? Okay, so first you're going to get a regular checking account, and this is the account that your money is deposited into. You're also going to have your regular reoccurring expenses coming out of this account, and also your giving. And I would like for you to put as much of your bills as possible on auto draft. This just saves time and makes it so much easier. Okay, I also want you to have a regular checking account for your spending money. So every month when money gets deposited in your account, you're going to have an automatic transfer set up for that amount of money to go to your spending account. And this is the only balance you should be looking at when looking at spending. And here's why I say this. Because when you start budgeting for things like car repairs, oil changes that don't happen every month, those things start to build up in the account, as they should, so when those things happen, you have the money for them. But if you have your spending money in this account, people are often tempted, including myself, to be like, oh my gosh, I have all this money in this account, like this is spending money. But it's not spending money, right? Because then when that car repair happens, you're like, oh, maybe I don't have the money after all. So what I would do is keep your spending money in a separate account and literally only check that balance when it comes to how much money you have to spend. Okay, the next thing is your 401k, IRA. Those are going to have their own separate accounts, either with your company or with a brokerage firm or whoever has your IRA. And then for savings. So you can have one savings account and manually manage it, meaning your emergency fund money and also your milestone savings. Or I would recommend having two savings accounts, one for your emergency fund and then just one for your regular milestone savings. Another option is sub-accounts if that's available at your bank. If not, you can either manually manage them or at least get two savings accounts. So now you're probably wondering how much money should go into each one of these buckets. And I'm going to tell you first the goal. And why do I call it a goal? Because so many times when I've helped people with their budget and I tell them the goal, they freak out. They're like, that is not possible. But let me tell you, it totally is possible. You just have to give it time and again, work towards the goal. So the goal is 70% on your regular expenses and spending, like total 70%, 10% savings, 10% investing, and 10% giving. That is the goal. It is totally doable. And trust me, I know what you're thinking right now, because when I had $41,000 in debt to pay off and I had less than $40,000 a month coming in, I was also freaking out. But it just takes time, and just stick with me, we're gonna get it done. So there are 4 levels, and I'm gonna go through them with you right now. So level 1, we are going to be minimizing our recurring living expenses as much as possible. However, I would like you to warn you not to be too drastic on this, right? Because if you go and you say, oh my gosh, I'm only gonna spend $5 a month on spending and I'm gonna eat rice and beans every single day. There is a small percentage of people who can rock that out and do this. Most people get excited about it, and then after 1 or 2 weeks, just like most things like weight loss, you are like, oh my gosh, it's way too overwhelming. I can't do this. It is much better to start with just a little bit, like maybe 5% less in as many categories as possible. Something where it's not massively drastic. But also another area to look at is just things that maybe subscriptions that you hardly ever use, just areas like that. So you want to minimize your recurring living expenses as much as possible. And fund your emergency fund as much as possible. We need to get the emergency fund up. If you already have an emergency fund, I would say minimum $500. And if you have a family, maybe you have like 4 people, I would say try to get it up to $1,000. You'll see this little sliver here of giving. So for that, I recommend everyone give at least $1 a month to whatever you're passionate about, whatever organization. But again, if you're currently not giving, then I would give at least $1. If you are currently tithing to your church or giving to an organization, I would still recommend giving. I am huge on giving. But if you're not, $1 a month, I really think it's important. So then once you have your emergency fund funded, we're going to go to level 2. Okay, so level 2, we're going to focus on paying off debt. So again, you're still going to have your reoccurring living expenses, minimized as much as possible. And then the money that you were putting towards your emergency fund and any other money, you're going to pay off your debt. Because the interest rate, especially like on credit card debt, is so high. So paying off debt is level 2. And again, we still have this small sliver of giving. And during level 2, I also think you should give at least $1 per month. So once you have all of your debt paid off, and this does not include like a mortgage. So if you have a home loan, this is not included. This is just consumer debt. Like if you have credit cards, student loans, medical payments, things like that, this level is really focused on getting those paid off as soon as possible. Next level is level 3. And here is where we hit the goal. So now you've paid off your debt and you've had that money you've put towards your emergency fund, and then you've paid off your debt. So now we are going to put 70% of our money towards our recurring living expenses, 10% to investing, 10% to savings, and 10% to giving. Now you're probably thinking, Lauren, you said this was our goal, so how can there be another level? But there is another level. There's level 4. In level 4, we're going to try to have 50% of our income being recurring living expenses, 30 investing, 10 savings, 10 giving. Honestly, you can even get better than this because here's the thing. Once you start investing and you start getting returns on your investment, especially when you start getting cash flow on your investment, then you have more money every month, more money every month. Then that money will cover your living expenses. You reinvest that money, and this pie chart will just get, more orange and more orange and more orange, which will allow you to give more, save more. So level 3, this is your goal. Level 4 and beyond is what happens when you start having an investment snowball versus a debt snowball. And again, this is totally doable. It just takes time and dedication. And if you stick around my channel, I will show you how to do this and give you the confidence you need to know that you can. So after I've gone through this, a common question that I get is, Lauren, should I be investing while I'm paying off my debt? And the answer is no. Except for your 401k. Whatever the match is for your 401k, like I said earlier, you should 100% be putting that much money into your 401k because that is an automatic 100% return on your investment. So if they are matching, let's say up to 3% of your salary, then I would be putting 3% of your salary into that 401k. I wouldn't put any more than that. And I wouldn't be doing any other investments because if you're paying off credit card debt, the interest is so high that if you're carrying that debt, it's really offsetting any income that you'd be making off an investment. If you put that money towards your debt, then basically you're automatically getting a 20% return or whatever your credit card or whatever the interest rate is because you're not having to pay that anymore. So number one, if you're paying off debt, which you should be paying off as soon as possible, I would not be investing until after your debt is paid off. People often ask me about giving, and you might have been wondering earlier in the video. Here's the thing. I think everyone, if you're not currently giving, should be giving at least $1 per month. This just reminds us of how blessed we are, and there's always someone else that needs more help than you. It doesn't matter what situation you're in or what your financial situation is, giving $1, just getting in the habit of giving, it is huge. And honestly, whenever you get to the point where you've paid off all your debt, I think you should give 10% of your income. If everybody gave 10% of their income, literally, it could absolutely change the world. Just remember, your ultimate goal is to do 70% of your recurring living expenses, 10% savings, 10% investing, and 10% giving. And again, if this is a huge goal for you right now, don't worry, I'm rooting for you. And stick around this channel and I will show you how to do this. It is absolutely possible. And when you hit that goal, it is the most liberating thing in the entire world. And also, if you are married and the budget is stressing out your marriage and you're constantly arguing about your budget, stay tuned because the next video is going to be my #1 marriage saving budget tip. This is huge. It has saved so many marriages from fighting over their budget, including mine. So if that's an issue for you, please stay tuned for the next video. I just want to thank you again for watching this video, and I would love for you to hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any more videos on money, savings, and investing. I will see you in the next video.